You'll be sharing your room with Evan starting tonight. It's final. I froze, spoon halfway to my mouth, as Mom dropped the news over dinner like she was announcing the weather. It was mid-July in Chicago, humid, noisy, and sticky. I had just come back from my summer internship at a local architecture firm, drenched in sweat, craving nothing but peace and privacy in the one place I had earned to call my own, my room. But there stood my stepbrother Evan at the end of the hallway, dragging in a suitcase like this was his dorm move-in day. He smirked like he'd already won something I didn't know I was fighting for. I looked at Mom, my fork now clinking back onto the plate. "You're serious?" She just sighed. "It's just a room, Janelle. He needs a place. Be mature about it. Just a room?" No, that room had been my sanctuary. The one place in this chaotic, blended household that was truly mine. I blinked hard. Something inside me shifted. I smiled, calm, still. But I already knew. If they were going to shove me into a corner, I was going to take the whole damn floor. My name is Janelle Carter. I was 24 when this all went down. Freshly graduated with a degree in architecture, hustling my way through a competitive internship downtown, and saving every cent I earned like it was sacred. The house we lived in wasn't mine, not officially. It belonged to my mother and her new husband, Greg. But that second-floor bedroom? I had remodeled it myself over the past 3 years. Painted the walls soft sage green with white crown molding. Refinished the old oak floors. Installed recessed lighting with dimmers, built custom shelving, and even installed a sliding barn door for the closet. It wasn't just a room, it was the first space that ever felt like home after Dad died. I was 15 when Mom met Greg. He came with 2 kids, Evan, who was 1 year younger than me, and Nicole, who was already in college. We moved into his house a year later. I was told it was a fresh start. In reality, it felt like an eviction from the life I once knew. Still, I didn't complain. I adapted. Over the years, Greg made it clear that his own kids came first. Evan could do no wrong. When I worked nights tutoring middle schoolers to help pay for my design software, Evan got a brand new gaming PC, just because. When I asked to use the garage for a summer woodworking project, Greg said no. Evan crashed his car twice and got a newer one both times. But my mother, she always said, "Just get through it, Janelle. It's temporary. Focus on your goals."
So I did.
I buried myself in my books, stayed late in the studio, learned CAD like it was my second language, and graduated with honors. I thought that meant I had earned my space, my peace. That room wasn't just a room. It held sleepless nights, pages of blueprints, designs that got me hired, dreams that were born under a flickering desk lamp, and cups of instant coffee. I remembered Grandma Eloise, my dad's mother, sitting on the edge of my bed during her last visit. She'd stroked my braids gently and whispered, "This world will try to shrink you, baby. But you got roots in concrete. You don't bend, you build." I didn't know it then, but those words would become the foundation of everything I was about to do. About a week after Evan moved in, I waited until everyone was gathered in the living room, Mom on the couch, Greg in his usual recliner, and Evan, sprawled out like he owned the place. I walked in holding a slim black folder. I had worn my calm face like armor. "Can I say something?" I asked. Greg grunted without looking up. Evan was already rolling his eyes. I opened the folder and laid the papers on the coffee table with care. "This is a purchase agreement," I said. "And this," I slid over a second document, "is a loan approval. Starting next month, I'll be the legal owner of the entire second floor." Greg sat up. "What are you talking about?" "I spoke to Mr. Lutz, your upstairs tenant. He's been thinking of selling for months. So I made an offer. It was accepted this morning." Mom's mouth opened, then closed again. Evan looked completely lost. Greg grabbed the papers, flipping through them in disbelief. "You're buying the upstairs unit?" I nodded slowly. No one thought to give me space. So I made my own. "You went behind our backs?" Greg barked, rising from his chair, the papers trembling in his hand. I stayed seated, legs crossed, voice calm. "I didn't go behind anyone's back. I handle my business. You live under this roof. You should have discussed this with us, he snapped. Correction, I lived in one room. And then you gave half of it away without even asking me. Evan stood now, confused and annoyed. Wait, so I'm being kicked out? No, I said, locking eyes with him. You're being moved to the guest room downstairs. I'll need the entire second floor to myself for the renovations. Mom finally found her voice. Janelle, this feels extreme. You're acting out of spite. I laughed gently, not out of humor, but out of disbelief. Spite? After everything, you still can't see it. She stood and came closer, eyes softening. Honey, it's just a room. No, it's not. It's the space I built when no one built anything for me. You keep calling it just a room because you never really saw me in it. Greg interjected. We welcomed you into this family. Welcomed me, I repeated. You tolerated me. There's a difference. Evan, arms folded, scoffed. You always act like you're better than everyone. No, I replied. Act like someone who's tired of being overlooked. There was a thick silence in the room before a new voice cut through it, Nicole's. She had just walked in, having overheard everything from the hallway. She's right, she said, placing her bag on the floor. Everyone turned. What? Greg blinked. Nicole nodded. You've treated her like an outsider from day one. I saw it every time I came home from college. You never gave her credit. Never made her feel like she belonged. Mom looked heartbroken. Nicole, that's not fair. No, it is, she insisted. Janelle had to build everything from scratch, while Evan got handed everything and still complained. Evan muttered something under his breath, but Nicole didn't stop. You know what I remember? Janelle fixing that leaky ceiling herself while you and Greg went to the lake house. I remember her making dinner for us all when you were sick, and no one thanked her. I was stunned. She looked at me. I should have spoken up sooner. The guilt on my mother's face was unmistakable now. Greg was red-faced, still clutching the papers, trying to come up with a counter-argument he didn't have. Janelle, Mom whispered. I didn't realize. I know, I said, standing. That's the problem. No one ever realized. Not until I made a move they couldn't ignore. The moment stretched between us all, raw and real. I'm not asking for anyone's blessing, I continued. I'm just letting you know. I'm not small anymore. And I won't be made to feel that way in my own home. After that night, the house was never quite the same, but not in a bad way. Evan sulked for a few days, packing up his things and moving into the downstairs guest room without much of a word. The bravado faded fast once he realized I wasn't bluffing. The second floor purchase was real, and the contractor I hired showed up 2 weeks later, tool belt and clipboard in hand. Greg avoided me. He spent most evenings in front of the TV with the volume too loud. I didn't push it. I didn't need another shouting match. The battle had already been won. But my mom, she started to change. One evening, I came downstairs to find her sitting at the kitchen table, a steaming cup of tea in her hand and a photo album open in front of her. Sit with me, she asked softly. I hesitated, then took the seat across from her. She turned the album toward me, photos from birthdays, family trips, Christmas mornings. In almost every frame, I stood off to the side. Smiling, sure, but always at the edge of the picture. I was looking through these today, she said, her voice trembling. And I realized something. You were always there. But I never really saw you. Her eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, Janelle. I should have protected your space. Your peace. Instead, I treated you like a guest in your own life. I didn't say anything at first. I just listened. It was the first time she'd ever truly acknowledged it. Then I whispered, "Thank you." From that day, she tried. She brought me fresh-baked bread when the construction noise got too loud. She asked questions, real ones, about my work, my goals, my future. And when I told her I was thinking of turning the top floor into a creative studio/rental unit, she didn't scoff or wave it off like she used to. She said, "You've always been the most capable person in this house." And it felt like healing. Nicole started coming around more often, too. We painted one of the upstairs rooms together, laughing, getting paint on our jeans, ordering greasy takeout like we were in college again. It was the most sister-like we'd ever been. One afternoon, she pulled me aside and said, "You know, ever since you stood up for yourself, I've been rethinking a lot. I'm applying for grad school in California. It's something I always wanted, but I didn't think I was allowed to want more." I hugged her tight.
You are.
We both are. And Evan? Well, Evan was Evan.
But even he mellowed out over time.
A month after the move, he knocked on my door and handed me an energy drink with a sticky note that read, "For the boss upstairs." It was small, but it was something. As for Greg, he never apologized. Not in words, at least. But one day, I came home to find a brand new toolbox sitting on my porch with a note. "Heard yours broke. Good work on the floors." I took the win. But the biggest shift was internal. I had spent years asking for space, for recognition, for a voice in my own family. And the moment I stopped asking and started owning, everything changed. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need revenge that burned bridges. I just needed to build something of my own and let them see it. I hired a young Black woman named Alina to help with the renovation, a recent architecture grad who reminded me of myself. Shy, but driven. Watching her thrive in the space I fought to reclaim made it all feel worth it. "You ever think you'd own your whole floor?" she asked one day, brushing dust off her blueprints. I smiled.
No.
But I always knew I'd own something. 3 months later, the entire top floor looked like a dream I hadn't dared imagine before. Exposed brick walls. Soft lighting. A reading nook by the window with a velvet green chair, and a vintage record player humming low jazz at night. My name, Janelle Brooks, etched on a tiny gold plaque near the front door. Brooks Creative Studio. It wasn't just a space. It was mine. I hosted my first gallery night that weekend. Photos and short films I'd worked on quietly for years, displayed for friends, neighbors, even a few local artists and influencers. The energy buzzed with warmth, admiration, possibility. People mingled, sipped wine, complimented the work. My old professor, Mr. Carver, showed up with a bouquet of sunflowers and whispered, "You did it, kid." And standing quietly in the back was my mom. She held a tray of cupcakes she'd baked herself, something she hadn't done since I was in high school. Lemon frosting, just the way I liked. She looked proud. Not performatively proud. Just still.
Present.
Later that night, as I stood on the rooftop terrace overlooking the neighborhood, Nicole joined me, her arms wrapped around a steaming cup of cider. "You've changed this place," she said, looking around. "It used to feel like a tomb. Now it feels like a home." I nodded. I didn't just want to prove them wrong. I wanted to prove me right. She smiled. "Well, you did both." A soft breeze blew through. The string lights above us danced slightly, casting golden reflections on the glass railing. Below, Evan was helping set up folding chairs for a small poetry night we'd planned for the community. Even Greg, begrudging as ever, had agreed to help install a better security door for the building next week. Slowly, the energy around the house was shifting. But the biggest change was within me. I used to shrink myself to fit inside everyone else's expectations. Good daughter, quiet sister, lucky tenant.
But now?
I expanded. I took up space. I built a life not in spite of them, but alongside them, on my terms. One morning, while watering the plants in my studio window, I found an old recipe card tucked between 2 books on the shelf. My grandmother's handwriting. "Make room for yourself, baby. No one else will do it for you." Tears welled up in my eyes. Full circle. Now, every room upstairs carried echoes of my growth. The scent of lavender candles, the hum of creativity, the laughter of people finally feeling seen. I wasn't just living there. I was thriving there. And that little voice in my head, the one that used to say, "You're taking up too much space?" She was gone. In her place stood a woman who bought her entire floor just to remind the world, and herself, that she was never meant to be small. Never again. The next spring, I launched a community arts program from the studio. Young creatives from the neighborhood came in weekly, learning photography, storytelling, self-expression. It wasn't just about giving back. It was about building forward. Because revenge might feel sweet, but legacy? Legacy lasts.